Ms. Rowley, can we call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Here.
Mr. Ziegler,
Here.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Here.
Mr. Hamer,
Here.
Mr. Rupel,
Here.
Mr. Scholes,
Motion to pass the minutes of the March 21st, 2022 Finance Committee meeting.
Second.
Thank you. A motion by Mr. Smolik, second by Mr. Fenstermaker. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Abstain.
All right, continuing on, the minutes of the March 21st, 2022 council meeting. Looking for a motion?
Motion to adopt.
Thank you, Mr. Fenstermaker. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Smolik. Any discussion? Can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
All right, move.
Motion to adopt.
Motion by Mr. Smolik, second by
Okay.
Phillips. I think we just use this microphone, maybe. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Rupel, Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no formal report tonight. That will be sent out for the next council meeting. One thing, our new part-time pay structure has been set up and submitted to the mayor and the finance director, and hopefully on April 10th, that will go into effect. And we do have one new application on hand. Hopefully, we'll start to see more roll in here shortly. One of the things that we're doing in the fire department right now, over the past couple of years, our training was mostly done in-house. And, you know, with COVID coming to an end here, hopefully, a lot of the training classes are reopened. The fire academy is back reopened for in-person training. So we've got quite a few guys that are signed up to go to classes. Some of the classes, fire investigation, I'll have 4 people go into that, getting their advanced. That hasn't even been offered for about 5 years. So that's a good thing. Tech rescue and rope rescue, we'll have a couple guys going to, and fire officer training as well. Also, I know I brought this up before, the county mass casualty drill will be held at Lakeland, and that'll be a joint effort between fire and law enforcement all throughout Lake County. And Kirtland Police and Fire will be a key part of that training. Summer events are filling up fast. We had our summer sign-up sheet, and we looked, and a lot of the weekends are going to be booked with special events. We just found out the half marathon, the Lake Health half marathon will be June 5th. There's also a 5K on Strawberry Weekend, and a lot of other events coming at Lakeland College. They're doing in-person graduation again. Wonderstruck, Vintage Ohio's back, so everything should be back this year. Other than that, I'm open for any questions.
What's the new hourly rate for the part-time position? I have a couple people interested.
The hourly rate for the part-time position, you know, we still have lower rates at third class. People, you know, without much training will start out in the $13.50 range. Part-time firefighter paramedics with experience, $20 is our rate. And then we do have a higher range that we can go up to for more experienced, up to about $21. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple things tonight. Just want to give you guys an update on the stolen vehicle on Raccoon Drive. It was recovered. Richmond Heights actually got a flock hit on one of their cameras and went to their apartment area and located the vehicle. It was occupied with 2 people in it. There was also a stolen handgun in the car at the time. We were able to recover that vehicle. We brought it back and did a full crime scene processing and submitted those things to the crime lab. In addition, just for the residents, and Officer Julia DeWolf, she is our crime prevention specialist, and we are offering home security surveys to anybody in the city that's interested. She's willing to come out, take a look at the residents, see what kind of security issues might be present, and make recommendations to any of those homeowners. And then last thing is we are doing backgrounds right now for the 2 positions that we have open, and we'll be working to fill those shortly with interviews and some other steps in the process. That concludes my report, and I'm open to any questions.
Chief, relative to the home security survey, is that just calling you or calling City Hall and setting up an appointment, or how does that work?
You can call the police department. You could ask for me or Officer DeWolf, and you'll get patched through to their voicemail. You can also go on the website and email us. I'll probably be in talks with Teresa to see if we can put a special link on the website where you can click on and submit it formally on the website, and then we can have somebody contact you.
Okay, I assume it's also going to go on the Facebook page as well. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Good evening. No formal report today. Besides, weather has decided to give us all 4 seasons. So crews are out again Sunday salting. That brings us to a total of 40 snow events for the year. Brush pickup started this week in Ward 2. Crews have also been out doing spring cleanups, getting baseball ready. Soccer is going to start here next week. And we've started a couple ditch eliminations. That completes my.
Mr. Pernar, how many snow events did we have last year?
32.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tonight's agenda. Street rehabilitation and maintenance project, design work is progressing. We expect to have a bid package ready later this month. The 10-year plan, council's now had a couple of weeks to take a look at that. Did anybody come up with any questions after taking a little more time to review that? Okay. And Parks Farm subdivision is trying to get started, but the weather's been a bit of a hindrance. They got a little bit of work done today, but not a whole lot. So that's all I have. Any questions?
I have just one. When do they expect the road to be in that park subdivision? Roughly, not.
It's going to be one of the last things they do. It's probably going to be August or September when the road goes in, when it's actually paved.
Thank you.
Mr. Courtney, I had a question. If you had gotten a chance to look at 17035, Mayor, did you get a chance to pass that along to him? Oh, okay. All right, great. Thank you. Just wanted to bring it up.
Mr. Courtney, just curious on the hill stabilization. We had to redo a bit last year. Is that holding up well? The river project?
Yes, the last visit we had down there was maybe a week or 2 ago. Joe and I went down there and we took a look at it when we were looking at the pavement with the street contractor from last year. And everything looks to be holding up well.
Thank you, sir.
Slapnicker?
Thank you, Council President Rupel. The February 2022 end of month reports have been distributed and posted to the city website. We did receive our first settlement of property taxes this March. Again, remember the settlements come in only twice a year. So we do have a good idea of where we stand on property taxes for this year. And right now we're right about 57% receipted in as budgeted. Okay. RITA did run a subpoena program for income taxes for the city. The results have come in regards to that. 2,354 letters were actually sent out representing $177,844 in potential delinquencies. That resulted in payments on those delinquencies of $81,085. During our budget meetings, I know Councilman Schultz and Councilman Fenstermaker had requested the total amount for Lance Nasi, so I wanted to follow up on that. The total cost to date is $27,287.25. Last week, I had met with Comp Management, who is our TPA for Ohio Workers' Comp, and the city will be in the group rating program for 2023. This is good news, as within group rating, we actually get our discount up front as opposed to a group retro, where it's based on a pool of cities or other organizations. And at the end of that season, they look to see if there were any, if you were above or below, if there's any discounts or additional monies owed. So we are in group rating for 2023. We've been very busy with the audit. Auditors have been on site. We're progressing through that as well. In addition to the gap conversion is also progressing well to complete those financial statements. That concludes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Louis.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Lello?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. As you can see from the agenda today, there's about 7 pieces of new legislation. So there's a flurry of legislation going on last week. I know you'll see 22024, which is for the notes. And I think I provided an explanation to council when the agenda went out, but I just want to make sure for the record purposes that people are aware. What happened was at the last meeting, there were only 4 members here, so that passed the note resolution, the note ordinance authorizing the issuance of those notes. However, it would not have passed. It will not pass by emergency. And when speaking with bond counsel, they indicated that it needs to be passed by emergency. So it actually needs to go into effect in the next 3 days, I believe it is, or 2 days. So we had discussions, and bond counsel and I reviewed this new legislation. What we're doing is we're repealing 22012, which was that note ordinance, and passing this ordinance 22024. And it's the identical language, except it includes language including the repealing of 22012. So I know technically this is basically a 4th reading now because it went 3 readings the first time, but bond counsel is asking that the 3 readings be waived and this be passed as an emergency so that the city can appropriately get those funds. The other legislation, I know there was one that Mr. Eckert asked me to draft, which is, I don't know if Mayor Potter's going to go through this, but it's trying to assist the Old Town Sewer residents for that project that's been mandated by the Ohio EPA. And I believe that's it about the legislation. Other things that's been going on, I have had recent discussions with the Ohio EPA about various projects in our permit, relative to our permit or as a co-permittee with Lake County. I've had ongoing discussions with the parks, Carol and Tim Parks, regarding their property and a deposit that they had to submit to the city, having to draft an agreement for them or specific language for them. They've been wonderful to deal with and very accommodating. Lastly, the only thing I do request is at the end of this meeting, prior to adjournment, that council pass a motion going to executive session to discuss the threat of imminent litigation and pending litigation. Aside from that, I have nothing further unless you have questions for me.
Go ahead, Matt.
Matt, has there been any discussion with Waste Management yet for the renewal of the contract?
No, sir. I think somebody else was taking the reins. I think it was Director of Public Service.
We did meet with Vince Crawford and started to talk about the upcoming contract.
Thanks.
Anyone else? All right, up to you, Mayor.
Evening, Council President Rupel. Thank you. I'll try to be brief. There's so much on the agenda tonight. First, want to thank the councilmen that were able to come up here for last week's Shamrock Shuffle and shenanigans on that beautiful Sunday afternoon. Thank you to Eric. Thank you to Joe. Thank you to Ron. And of course, Mr. Hamer, as always, in these community events. It was a heck of a trying day, but I think there was at starting time, there was about 200 some people here, 155 entrants into the race. The weather just refused to cooperate, but people got out there, they ran the race, and I think people had a good time. If the weather would have relented, they would have stuck around for a little bit longer, but learned a lot for next year, but weather is not one of those things we can control. So thanks to everybody in the community that came out to support that and volunteer. Talked about the Old Town grant request or the resolution tonight. Before council, would ask that that gets passed. I'll be meeting with Mr. Eckert tomorrow night. Eddie and Joe and Doug and myself be going back and forth related to a grant request, the first one through Congressman Joyce's office, with one through Senator Brown's office to follow. But the one through Congressman Joyce's office is, I think, Wednesday that will be submitted. So to pass that tonight by emergency would be much appreciated, so we can have council's endorsement basically as part of that grant request. Also, while speaking of Mr. Eckert, we have his agreement before council for third reading. Eddie has been working hard not only on the Old Town Sewer grant stuff, but he's also been working with a lot of prospective business owners and developers here in the community, not to mention with the comprehensive plan that we're going to be working on this year and already working on. Eddie will be an integral piece to that effort as well. So if we could pass that tonight, that would be tremendous, and I'd appreciate it. I just talked to Lewis before the meeting. I know we keep talking about having an open discussion with our community related to road funding, long-term road funding strategy. I would like to, and originally we talked about maybe getting one of the gyms over at the school and having the community out. I think with the advent of this new cast system with our YouTube channel and being able to have these meetings live and out to the community, I think we can probably do this meeting right here in council chambers so everyone can get a chance at home to, and obviously, you know, there's a room for a fair amount of people in here at council chambers as well. And then thinking maybe what we do is put out a Facebook post, maybe people reach out to folks. If they have any questions beforehand and they wouldn't be able to make the meeting, submit those questions ahead of time. I'm going to not hold anyone to it right now, but start thinking about the date of April 25th to have that open discussion. I think before that, we would probably maybe at the next council meeting, maybe have I guess it would probably be a finance committee meeting, just to kind of walk through with the finance director some of the different scenarios related to the options for long-term road funding strategy. So if you guys would be inclined to take a look at your calendars and get back to us, I guess as far as maybe Matt Scholes, if that date of the 25th would work. Well, I guess we don't need that. 25th, I said, didn't I? Monday, the 25th, yeah. So I guess I would ask to schedule a finance committee meeting for after that next council meeting, to kind of have that walkthrough conversation prior to the following week, if we have that forum. Now, Matt, that won't, will that have to be, if all of council is there, will that necessarily have to be a publicly advertised meeting and a council meeting?
Well, it's a finance committee meeting.
No, separate. So finance committee meeting after the council meeting is part of the 4/18 meeting, right? And then if we were to have a community forum, does that necessarily need to be, I mean, because council people will be in attendance and potentially participating, which I would hope we would have their participation.
I would advertise it as a special meeting. The only reason why I say that is it's a scheduled or pre-scheduled meeting.
With more than
like-
a majority of the council members.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And they may be discussing city business. So I would err on the side of caution and just schedule a special meeting for that.
So if we could coalesce around that date, technically we could at the 4/18 meeting, schedule that for the following Monday, but yet advertise it prior to, as long as everybody's in agreement that that date works. Does that make sense?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, all we need for a special meeting is 24 hours notice.
And when I say advertise, I mean through the city Facebook page and other
Absolutely.
means. Okay.
Yes, sir.
A sewer meeting? No, this is road funding meeting. Don't be sorry, I probably moved right into the discussion without a good segue. Next, the broadband survey results. We'll pull those reports from SurveyMonkey this week and send those out to all of you. And then we can talk about publishing those. Mr. Fenstermaker, if you would, probably be a good opportunity for you and I to sit down and sketch some of this stuff out related to the road funding meeting, as well as how we want to deliver those survey results to the community. And then lastly, I will say how happy I am and proud I am to see Mr. Lowry's name here on tonight's agenda to be appointed to fill out the unexpired term for Ward 1. I think Rich proved himself in 4 years as council at large, and not only to be a great partner and a hardworking person for the city, but you want to talk about somebody with integrity and who will always say what's on his mind, and he always comes from that perspective, or to those assertions or those decisions through a very thoughtful process. So I'm excited to have Rich back on City Council be joining you all. Other than that, I am open for comments or questions.
Questions for the mayor? Do you have any standing committee reports? We had the economic development meeting.
Yes, Eric, I started on the minutes. I will get those over to Ms. Raleigh tomorrow. Did minutes already? Okay. I know I started taking them. I wasn't sure if anybody recorded them. You did? Okay.
Yeah, I sent them to Denise.
Correspondence, I don't have, other than the typical stuff, no correspondence. Public comments on matters not on the agenda. And this is an opportunity for the public to come forward and make any comments for things that are not on tonight's agenda. Yeah, please, obviously, when you come up, you know the drill, I think. Name, rank, serial number, address.
Mr. Angie, there's a mute button on there. You can flip the switch on. I set you up.
Hello. Oh, 8013 Gildersleeve Drive, Nick Angie. Good evening. I just wanted to take a minute to thank council for a very nice and honest interview. Although I did not get the position for Ward 1, I truly felt everybody gave me an honest look. After the process and decision was made, a few of you reached out to me with very touching words. Those words were comparable to me winning in my eyes. A very special thank you to Denise. Your organization and courtesy throughout the process was second to no one. The city is very lucky to have you and your knowledge. Congratulations to my friend, neighbor, and fellow VW bug lover, Mr. Lowry. Last but not least, I'd like to remind you all and encourage you all to keep working together. It's okay to have a difference of opinion. It's the meeting in the middle that counts. The fire department I work at has 82 very different, strong personalities. We always don't see eye to eye, and that's okay. When we need to make a decision in the field, we do it together, we stick with each other, and we always do what's best for the people we are serving. Please do exactly that. Thank you, and God bless all of you.
Mr. Angie, I want to thank you for putting your name in the hat, and I appreciate our conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Angie. Are there any others who wish to come forward with public comments on matters not on tonight's agenda? Moving forward with old business, ordinance number 22-0-19. This is a third reading, an ordinance extending the agreement for economic development consulting services between Edward J. Eckert and North Shore Associates LLC in the city of Kirtland and declaring an emergency. So we would need a motion. No. We just need a motion to adopt.
It would be a motion to declare an emergency and adopt.
This is definitely a Monday.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smolik, second by Mr. Fenstermaker. First of all, is there any discussion? The only thing I would point out, Mayor, to the extent just that we can get more interaction with council at some point, whether it's just a member at a time or whatever. It's an important position for our city, and I think we all just want to make sure we're all on the same page, so.
Yeah, Mayor, I appreciate Eddie coming in and talking with us, but I would also be a little more comfortable getting more of a written report as a progress moves along. The minutes capture only so much, but if we had some type of written document, then we can say, this is what we're, paying this consultant for. And following up with that written document, I believe it was his second time he was here. There was discussion about, a document that would help people coming in. I know he's all over the place with what he's trying to help you with, but, I think that document of being able to hand somebody who's a prospective business owner here or wants to do something in the city, having that document prepared and available is very good, right? It's a good framework. I know with the extension of this, when it passes, he's got a year to work on it, but we're 6 months into this contract, so just wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, and I think, thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Scholes. I think you with an Economic Development Committee, Mr. Fenstermaker, you're the chair of that committee, is that correct?
I am.
Oh, that's right, Eric's. At our next Economic Development Committee meeting, probably a good item to be on the agenda is to kind of sketch out exactly how we want that kind of, whether it's a form, a document, whatever it is, related to Eddie's introduction to a new prospective business owner or developer.
That's going to be in the, we're going to have a meeting. I think we already set it up. Isn't that in the standing committee reports? I should
Did we
announce
send
that.
that? Did we set a date? I don't know if there was a date set. I shouldn't say we.
Did I send it to you?
Committee.
Denise?
I think at the last meeting, it
Yeah.
was agreed April 18th.
April 18th at 5 o'clock.
Perfect.
Okay, any more discussion? Oh,
Just one item on that. We do a lot already with Denise zoning and the fire department with new businesses. We do a lot to help walk them through the process of what they need to do. So some of it's already established, so we could kind of help you out, and Denise could also help out with that.
All right, thank you, Chief. Anything else? Can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
All right, moving on. Resolution number 22-R-21, second reading, a resolution authorizing participation in the ODOT road salt contracts awarded in 2022 and declaring an emergency. And if I recall, this is something we do need to pass this evening. So I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to waive the 3 readings?
Second.
I'm sorry, a motion by Mr. Ziegler, second by Mr. Smolik. Is there any discussion? Can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Abstain.
I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to declare an emergency and adopt?
Second.
Again, motion by Mr. Ziegler, second by Mr. Smolik. Any discussion? Hearing none, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Abstain.
Thank you. Moving on to new business. This is for public comments on agenda items of new business. Again, another opportunity for the public to come forward to put forth any comments they have regarding new business on tonight's agenda. I do not see anyone getting up, so we'll move on. Resolution number 22-R-22. This is the resolution appointing Richard Lowry as the Ward 1 councilperson of the Kirtland City Council to fill the unexpired term of Kelly Wolf and declaring an emergency. And we would need a motion to waive the 3 readings.
Motion to waive the 3 readings?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smolik, second by Mr. Hamer. Any discussion? Hearing none, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
No.
All right, looking, entertain a motion.
A motion to declare an emergency and adopt?
A motion by Mr. Hamer.
Second.
Declare an emergency and adopt, and second by Mr. Smolik. Any discussion first? Hearing none, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
No.
All right, at this time, would it be appropriate, Mr. Lalo, to have Councilman-elect, Councilman appoint Lowry to step forward and have him, are you administering the oath, Mr. Mayor? Okay. You come forward, Mr. Lowry. Mr. Lowry? You want these flags moved?
Best place, Teresa. What'd you say? Thank you. And we'll stand on that side. All right, Mr. Lowry, please raise your right hand and place your left hand on the Bible. It's the oath of office for the City of Kirtland, Ward 1, councilperson. Fill out the unexpired term of that position. Repeat after me. I, Richard K. Lowry, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Charter and ordinances
and the Charter and ordinances
of the City of Kirtland,
of the City of Kirtland,
and that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
honestly,
honestly,
and impartially discharge the duties
and impartially discharge the duties
of Ward 1 Councilman
of Ward 1 Councilman
for the City of Kirtland.
for the City of Kirtland.
All right, let's go. Okay, well, congratulations, Mr. Lowry. Moving on, resolution number 22-R-23. This is a resolution amending resolution number 21-R-76 relating to establishing standing committees of council and declaring an emergency.
Motion to waive the three readings?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smolik, second by Mr. Ziegler. Any discussion? Hearing none, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry, Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Looking for another motion.
Motion to declare an emergency and adopt.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Schultz, second by Mr. Fenstermaker. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry, Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
All right, thank you. Moving on, ordinance number 22-0-24, an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of $3,603,000 of notes in participation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of retiring together with other funds available to the city's outstanding debt. Number one, street improvement notes, Series 2021, dated April 21st, 2021. And number two, various purpose notes, Series 2021, dated June 16th, 2021, repealing ordinance number 22-0-12, passed on March 21st, 2022, and declaring an emergency.
Motion to waive the three readings?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ziegler, second by Mr. Schultz. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Okay, looking for a motion.
Motion to declare an emergency and adopt?
Thank you.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Ziegler, second by Mr. Fenstermaker. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Scholes,
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, resolution number 22-R-25. This is a resolution authorizing all actions necessary to accept Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC, 2022 Energized Community Grants and declaring an emergency.
Motion to waive the three readings?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smolik, seconded by Mr. Fenstermaker. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
Looking for a motion to adopt. Anyone? Need a motion to declare an emergency and adopt.
Motion to adopt?
Declare an emergency and adopt.
Motion to declare an emergency and adopt, sorry.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Smolik, seconded by Mr. Fenstermaker. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
All right, moving on. Resolution number 22-R-26. This is a resolution recognizing and appreciating the City of Kirtland's public works professionals, declaring National Public Works Week to be May 15th through 21st, 2022. Okay, moving on, resolution number 22-R-27 is Arbor Day proclamation. Finally, resolution number 22-R-28. This is a resolution supporting the submission of a request to federally elected officials for community project funding for fiscal year 2023 and/or any other avenue for funding assistance for the Old Town Sewer Project and declaring an emergency. And this is something we were asked to pass tonight if possible.
Motion to waive the three readings. Second.
Thank you. A motion by Councilman Schultz, second by Mr. Ziegler. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes. Motion to declare an emergency and adopt.
Second.
Thank you. A motion made by Mr. Schultz, seconded by Mr. Fenstermaker. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
All right, this time we're looking, well, I guess, first of all, it'll be council comments.
Sorry about that. There were some questions regarding who and what the Blue Anchor is. So I was able to find out that it's going to be a person, his name is Carlos, but he builds, assembles, and installs cabinets. So that new business on Route 6, I know it's a little confusing. It looks like that's going to sell nautical equipment, but they are going to do cabinets there.
Thanks, Councilman Schultz. And I know that Mr. LeConte was in there and had a good discussion with him last week.
Any other council comments?
Just wanted to welcome Rich. So I look forward to working with you.
Sorry. I'm new. Thanks, everybody seated up here for your support, and look forward to working with you and certainly the administration going forward, so thanks.
Thank you. Any further council comments? Okay, we have, next is continuing concerns. This is the final opportunity for the public here to come forward. And state any continuing concerns you may have. Obviously, do you need to do your name and address if you come forward? And I see so nobody moving, so. We need a motion now to go into executive session to discuss pending litigation and the threat of imminent litigation.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Smolik, seconded by Mr. Schultz. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Smolik,
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler,
Yes.
Mr. Fenstermaker,
Yes.
Mr. Hamer,
Yes.
Mr. Lowry.
Yes.
Mr. Rupel,
Yes.
Mr. Schultz,
Yes.
And for anyone still with us, we come back, all we're going to do is close out the meeting, so you don't need to stay around if you don't like.